All right. Well, that's right, wine drinking people. I did all that drinking yesterday and still made it out for a Brunello tasting at Cafe Maxx. And, usually we don't do events there this time of year, but things have slowed down a little bit in South Florida in the restaurant business. And we're going to be back doing stuff January, February, and March at Cafe Maxx in addition to here in the store. It's always a little more comfortable. We don't have to move things around here. And we've got superstar chef Oliver Saucy cooking up the hits at Cafe Maxx. Well, last night, the focus of our attention was Montalcino. And with the 2006s arriving any day now, the 2005 and 2004 vintage wines sitting on the shelf. These are three excellent vintages from Montalcino. Every vintage has got its place. 05 may have not been as highly regarded as 04 or 06, but the 05s have a lovely forward nature to them and going to be drinking much earlier. All right, well, we had two producers with us last night at Cafe Maxx. The first, Anthony from the Florida Wine Company, Anthony Pannoni, and he's got some great selections from Kermit Lynch, one of my favorite importers of French and Italian wines. Well, just recently, Anthony brought these Italian wines to Florida, so kind of something new here for us folks in the South. But he had three wines from Sesti. We have all three of these wines in the store. I love traditional Sangiovese. These three wines are all 100% Sangiovese. Even though the Montalcino, the first wine, is a Super Tuscan. Well, it's not an IG. It's an IGT wine. It's not considered. Well, the Italian wine mafia hasn't made their coin on it. You see these strips right here? That means the Italian wine mob has been paid. DOC and DOCG. This one, we don't need to pay the mob off for that. We could put Cabernet in it if we want. Hey, 2003, a lot of the Brunello producers put Cabernet in it anyways. But legally, they could. But, this is a traditional winery. And these wines, when you look at them and you smell them and taste them in a blind tasting, God help you if you guess anything but Sangiovese, because they are the epitome of it. And the first wine, the Montalcino, very light. I would like this wine slightly chilled. Lovely, sour, red cherry fruit, a hint of that black spice, and a lovely kind of fresh earth character to the wine. Really lovely and refreshing stuff at $23.75. The Rosso di Montalcino from 2008 also. It looks like 2008 is a really good vintage too. Both of these wines excellent, as are the Rossos that we received so far from this vintage. Had that lovely sour cherry fruit, a hint of kind of bitter greens to this. Really lovely old world savoriness to the nose even. A little hint of dried rose petal. Some lovely freshness on the palate as well. Some light cherry fruit and a lovely fresh finish. This Rosso just delicious. And then the Brunello di Montalcino, the big boy from 04 from this winery. Lovely kind of wild strawberry fruit here. Porcini mushroom, underbrush. Fresh plowed earth, tar, black spices, and then on the palate, man, even though it was big, it had this lovely silkiness and elegance to the tannins. These 2004s are going to go for some time in your cellar. For me, vintage Brunello, I like 10 to 15 years after the vintage. And the 95s to me are drinking beautifully right now, although they're plateauing. They'll hold for 10 years possibly still, even at this point. All right, well, we started out with the 2005 San Pellegrino Brunello Montalcino, and as I mentioned before, all these producers, small, more boutique ton of Brunello producers, not in 10,000 case production range, many of them 1,000 cases or less. And this 2005 vintage, really forward, really bright, another really good vintage from Montalcino, but maybe not as age-worthy as the 2004s. This wine had some lovely red cherry fruit, black spices, tar, some firm tannins, but still smooth and really showing nicely on the finish. Everything coming together, and a really nice bottle of Brunello di Montalcino, a little more classic in style. The San Polo Reserva 2004 was up next, and this wine was quite a bit bigger in size as the 2004s are. Lovely black licorice spice, some lovely red cherry liqueur-like fruit, exotic floral notes, and a really nice and big structured Brunello di Montalcino 2004 vintage, as I mentioned before, a vintage that you want to cellar an additional 10 years in most cases. All right, then the 2005 Cupano. Cupano is a tiny producer. This is there's a French winemaker here. They're in the biodynamic farming practices, and this wine's got some lovely exotic spice to it. You can tell this wine was aged in small barrique. Something that's not traditionally done in Montalcino, but you have a lot of people doing that. And this gives the wine a lovely perfume and spice, some red licorice, and some lovely red cherry and wild strawberry fruit here as well. Rich and decadent on the palate. A lovely New World style Brunello Di Montalcino. Very forward and seductive. Okay, and then the 2005 Paggio Antico Altero. It's, this wine, one of the more famous producers in Montalcino, Paggio Antico. And this wine also sees a little barrique in this, red licorice, red cherry fruit, kind of fresh earth coming up in that also. Some lovely spice, but still a lot of bright red cherry fruit showing through this '05 vintage. Again, really forward and seductive. And then the Paggio Antico Reserva 2004. Wow, man, this wine was a blockbuster. My pick for wine of the night. And it doesn't have to necessarily be bigger to be better to me, folks. I do like light and savory wines, like the Sesti wines, but for me, this wine just had everything. It was all that and a box of chocolates, exotic spice, black cherries, rich and decadent on the palate, lovely texture, wonderful acidity, everything coming together at the end. A beautiful bottle of Brunello Di Montalcino, and that's what I had to drink last night, folks. I'm your host, Andrew Lampasone, signing off for the Wine Watch, saying remember, always drink the good stuff first.